Hamilton's first Ferrari win got the headlines. The records, the radio message, the oldest winner since 1970, all of it real. But while fans were cheering for a driver, a very different group of people were watching something else. Inside 24 hours, Ferrari's market value climbed by roughly 2.2 billion euros. Some of them were reading an analyst's note. None of them were talking about the thing that actually won Hamilton the race. 3 small parts on that car, connected in a way nobody had linked before. Barcelona, Sunday afternoon. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, the track the whole paddock treats as a ruler. If something works here, it works everywhere. And for the first time since he pulled on red, something on Lewis Hamilton's car worked. He did not start from pole. George Russell took that. In a Mercedes that had been the fastest car for most of the season, Hamilton lined up second. By the time the flag fell, he had won by 19.561 seconds. The largest margin anyone had managed all year. He set the fastest lap on the way. And he stood on the podium as the oldest man to win a Grand Prix in 56 years, since Jack Brabham in 1970. That is the part you already know. The 106th win. The first all-British podium since 1968, with Russell second and Lando Norris third. A perfect afternoon for a man who had spent his entire first year in red without a single podium to show for it. But a win like that does not come from a driver finding half a second in his hands overnight. It comes from the car. And the car had changed. What Ferrari brought to Spain was the biggest set of upgrades it had built all season. The question is not whether it worked. It plainly did. The question is what it fixed. Because the answer is the same answer. A room full of analysts reached the very next morning, staring at a completely different screen. Russell led off the line on mediums. Hamilton, second, was on softs, the faster tyre, the one that usually punishes you later. Everyone expected the Mercedes to control the race from the front, and the Ferrari would cook its tyres chasing it. That is not what happened. Hamilton stayed in range. They stopped him 3 times, where Mercedes stopped twice. And every time he came back out, he had pace the others did not. A 3-stop only works if the fresh tyre is worth more than the time you lose in the pit lane. For most of this season, in this Ferrari, it had not been. The car ate its rear tyres. Hamilton had spent races nursing a machine that fell off a cliff the moment he pushed. In Barcelona, that cliff was gone. Then came the gift. On lap 41, Fernando Alonso pulled off, and the virtual safety car came out. The whole field has to slow down, which means a pit stop costs you almost nothing. He took an almost free stop, came out around 3 seconds clear, and drove away on a fresh set of hards. Here is the detail everyone missed at the time. The strategy did not win that race on its own. The strategy was only available because the car could finally use it. You cannot gamble on a 3-stop if your tyres are gone after 8 laps. Hamilton had the freedom to attack because, underneath him, something had changed in how that Ferrari treated its tyres. And the man on the radio knew it. Carlo Santi, Hamilton's race engineer, had watched this car wear down one of the greatest drivers alive for over a year. On Sunday, for the first time, he was reading out gaps that were growing in the right direction. So what changed? Ferrari did not bolt on a bigger engine. They brought 3 parts to Barcelona that, on their own, look minor. Together, they rewired how the whole car breathes, and almost nobody outside the engineering bay connected them. On paper, the package was 8 new parts, stacked on top of the upgrades Ferrari had already brought to Miami a few races earlier. It was the biggest single step the team had taken all year. The first part is the front wing. New footplate, new vanes, a reshaped nose. It controls the wake coming off the front tyres. A Formula 1 tyre is a brick spinning at huge speed, and it throws a violent, churning mess of air out and back. So the new front wing is doing more than making front downforce. It takes that filthy wake and steers it, sending cleaner air down the side of the car to the floor and the rear. The second part protects that path. Ferrari reworked the side pods, puffing out the shoulder and reshaping the area they call the coke line, the narrow waist near the back of the car. So part 1 moves the dirty air. Part 2 builds the channel that keeps it clean all the way to the rear axle. Then comes the third part, the one almost nobody wrote about. Wheel rims, used for the first time in Spain. And this is where the thinking gets interesting, because a rim is more than just metal. It is a radiator. Heat from the brakes flows into the rim, and the rim feeds that heat into the tyre from the inside. Change the rim, and you change how quickly the tyre warms up and how steadily it holds its heat. Now, line those 3 up. 2 different problems, front tyre wake and tyre heat, solved by parts that only matter as a connected chain. That is the thing fans did not see and the announcers did not connect. The actual story was an engineering story, hiding inside three parts that, on their own, sound like nothing. Pull on one and the whole thing comes loose. The cleaner airflow steadies the floor. The steady floor gives steady downforce. Steady downforce stops the tire sliding. Less sliding means less heat and less wear. And the new rims keep that heat in the zone where the tire grips. Hamilton was not driving a faster car so much as a calmer one, a car that finally stopped punishing him for pushing. Ferrari's own engineers were careful about the size of it, putting the gain at around 0.2 of a second a lap. People in the paddock who watched it run all weekend put the real number closer to 0.6. In a sport decided by thousandths, the gap between 0.2 and 0.6 is the gap between a midfield Sunday and a win. And this is where the story stops being about one race. A fluke is a safety car at the right moment. A fix is a car that acts different every lap, on every tyre, all afternoon. What Barcelona showed was the second kind. The virtual safety car helped, yes. But you do not win by nearly 20 seconds and set the fastest lap because of one lucky safety car. You win like that because the machine itself got better. Anyone can have a good Sunday. The thing worth real attention is whether a team has fixed a deep problem, the kind that turns one good weekend into a run of them. Ferrari's whole season had been a story of a strong qualifying car that could not finish the job. The tyre problem behind Hamilton's frustration was the problem the upgrade was built to wipe out. And on the hardest tyre test on the calendar, it held. If the fix is real, the gain is bigger than one fast weekend. Ferrari has fixed the exact flaw that was costing it races all year. The same three-part chain that worked in Barcelona works at almost every track, because almost every track asks the tyre to survive. Hamilton sits 41 points behind the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, the teenager in the Mercedes who has run away with the early season, and that gap should have been even worse. Antonelli was running second in Barcelona, on track to stretch his lead, when his Mercedes simply failed beneath him and rolled to a halt. An electrical failure. Even Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, came out afterward and openly doubted his own team's reliability. So the title leader was handing points back at the exact moment Ferrari found its form. One race does not close that gap. But one race that proves the car is fixed changes the maths on every race left. A driver chasing 41 points in a broken car is finished. A driver chasing 41 points in a car that just found half a second is dangerous. That is the bet. And the very next day, a long way from any racetrack, someone placed it with real money. If you want the tech and the money behind this title fight broken down like this every week, take a second and subscribe. Now, while the garage in Maranello was still cheering, a screen in Milan was about to tell the other half of the story. Ferrari is more than a race team. It is a public company, listed in Milan and in New York, and every day its shares are bought and sold by people who have never watched a qualifying lap in their lives. To them, the prancing horse is a luxury brand with huge profits, and the race team is marketing. The race was Sunday. Markets were closed. They opened again on Monday morning, and in the first hours of trading in Milan, Ferrari stock jumped about 4.4%. That move added around 2.2 billion euros to what the company was worth. Ferrari has about 176 million shares out in the market. The share price moved by around 12.5 euros. Multiply those together and you get near 2.2 billion. To put it another way, Ferrari is worth more than 50 billion euros. So in one morning, without selling a single extra car, it added about 4% to the value of the whole company. The same Monday, Hamilton's win was on every front page. The people who move serious money were marking Ferrari up by billions. Two stories, one company, one morning. The cameras pointed at the trophy. The money was looking somewhere else completely. But the public never saw what really moved that stock. A document, put out that same Monday morning, while the headlines were still about Hamilton. One of the biggest investment banks in the world had quietly changed its mind about Ferrari. And that single change of mind is what the 2.2 billion was really reacting to. The timing was almost too perfect. A racing win and a financial re-rating landing on the same day. To a fan, it looked like the win lifted the stock. To anyone reading the actual paperwork, it was something colder. Ferrari had turned a corner. And the question behind both was the same. Has Ferrari truly fixed what was wrong with it, or did it just have a good weekend? The bank was Morgan Stanley. On Monday, they upgraded Ferrari, lifting it from what they call equal weight to overweight. In the same note, they raised their price target by 50 euros to 380. Put simply, they told their clients the stock was cheap and likely to climb. And their reason had almost nothing to do with Sunday. The analyst behind it, Eduard Orbin, made a case about the company itself, not the race team. His case was that the market had punished Ferrari too hard over the past year. Fear about a new electric model, fear about luxury sales, fear that the magic was fading. Orbin's note said that fear had gone too far. The brand was still strong, the cars still held their value. The worry about the new electric Ferrari was already built into the price. His sharpest point was about the maths of the sell-off. The share price had dropped around a quarter in a year, while what the company was expected to earn had barely moved. To Orbin, that meant the fall was driven by mood, not by the business getting worse. That is an argument about the business itself. Orbin pointed to one simple fact, that the number of ultra-rich people in the world keeps climbing, and Ferrari sells to exactly those people, with a waiting list longer than its production line. None of that is about a front wing, none of it is about Barcelona. So take the romance out of it, and the picture gets sharper. The win did not magically print 2.2 billion euros. What happened is that the smart money decided, for its own reasons, that Ferrari had been knocked down too far. On the exact same weekend, the car proved on track that the team was climbing back. The story the engineers were telling with the SF26 and the story the analysts were telling with their spreadsheets rhymed. And when those two stories rhyme, that is usually when something real is happening under both of them. Ferrari is no longer the company that flatters and fails. It is, suddenly, a company that delivers. But a signal is not a sure thing. A bank can be wrong. And the only thing that settles it is the thing every good investor and every honest engineer respects above all else, not the press release. The next data point, which comes almost right away. 12 days after Barcelona, the circus reaches the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and Ferrari is not showing up quietly. For Austria, Ferrari is bringing an engine upgrade. It is the third version of its power unit this season, built around a part of the 2026 rules. It is called ADUO, which stands for Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. If your engine is more than about 4% behind the best engine on the grid, the rules give you extra chances to upgrade it mid-season, so the slowest makers can catch up, instead of being stuck for a year. Ferrari qualified for that help. It earned 2 of those upgrade windows for this season alone. A reworked engine inside, matched with a new fuel made by Shell at its lab in Hamburg, the two tuned together to squeeze out more power. The total gain is reported as just over 1/10 of a second a lap, still waiting on the FIA to sign it off. Stack that 1/10 on top of the half-second the car just found in Barcelona, and you start to see why a bank looked at this company and decided the worst was over. This is the test that matters most. Barcelona answered one question, whether the car was fixed. Austria asks a harder one, whether the fix travels. A totally different track, with fresh power in the back of the car and Ferrari's second aero package of the year stacked on top. If Hamilton is on the podium fighting at the Red Bull Ring, then Barcelona was not a one-off. It was the start of something. But nobody is handing Ferrari that result. Red Bull shows up at its own home race with a big upgrade of its own. The top engine on this grid, the one ADUO measures everyone against, is said to belong to Red Bull, not Mercedes. The fix has to prove itself against a team with every reason to slam the door. That is the racing test. Then there is the other one, because the money has the same problem the car does. A re-rating is a bet. The market agreed for a morning. But a single Good Monday proves nothing on its own, the same way a single safety car proves nothing on a Sunday. So, the real question is not whether Ferrari made 2.2 billion euros. It did, on paper, for now. What gets tested next is whether that number holds up in the real world. That moment is already on the calendar. At the end of July, Ferrari reports its earnings, the hard numbers, the actual money. That is when the spreadsheet gets checked against the bank account. The same way Austria is when the stopwatch gets checked against Barcelona. 2 tests, 2 different rooms, asking the same question. Was this real, or was it a good weekend? For the first time in a long while, Ferrari walks into both of those tests with the wind behind it. A driver who just ended a year of misery in the best possible way. A car that just fixed its deepest flaw. And a wall of analysts who just told the world it had been sold short. The track and the trading floor agree. Right now, in the same breath. They almost never do. Hamilton chased a fast car his whole career, and it finally arrived at 41 years old, in red, 12 days before the next test. The stopwatch says it is real. The spreadsheet says it is real. Austria gets the final word. If this is the kind of breakdown you want, where the cars and the money behind the 2026 title fight get pulled apart and connected, subscribe and stay with this channel. The next race is the test that tells us whether Barcelona was a turning point or just a flash in the pan. Hit subscribe and watch the next one with me.